Hi everyone, welcome to our next episode of We Talk Tech. I am so excited to be here with a very special guest today, Sean Marihugh. I met Sean virtually a few months ago through a mutual friend. He was a peer who lives in Seattle and works at Microsoft. And he has a wonderful story. So, Sean, thank you so much for joining us today. So, before we get into working at Microsoft with a disability, what can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so as you mentioned, I live in Seattle. I've lived kind of in Washington my whole life, and in the Seattle area for a good while now. I went to school at the University of Washington, and have not gone too far from there. I have Becker muscular dystrophy, and so I use a power wheelchair. And I think one of the things that I do love about Seattle is just the access to a lot of types of adaptive sports and activities pretty close by. I think there's just a lot of access to the mountains, a lot of water access, and some really cool organizations I've gotten to know over the years and have really enjoyed some really neat and cool new experiences, as well as a lot of others in the broader region, like up in BC a lot, down in Oregon. And yeah, there's a lot to do. And so when I was younger, I started using a power wheelchair when I was maybe like 17 or 18, for kind of longer distances. I'd used a manual chair a little bit before that. Never really quite knew what I wanted to do. And then I had gotten plugged in with an organization at the University of Washington that's called Do It. It's an acronym for a bunch of long words, but they are really focused on getting high school and college students with disabilities kind of prepared for college and career transitions and all those sorts of things. And when I had done that, it's a 3-year program. So I started with that when I was about 16. It was one of the first times I had really been around a lot of people with a lot of different disabilities. I had gone to camps when I was a lot younger for people with muscular dystrophy, and so felt like I had a lot of cool connections and really great people I'd met through that space. But it was neat to start to get exposed to all of these other aspects of accessibility and disability that I didn't necessarily have experience with. And I feel like that, I think, really transformed the direction I wanted to go from that point. That program had a big focus on technology, and I was pretty fascinated just seeing all the different ways people use and interact with technology in the world. And there's just such a range of experiences. And I think I got excited about the potential that there's so many different ways of doing things. And there's just a lot of inherent creativity and accessibility and disability to be able to discover and find a lot of that. So I don't know, I feel like that really set me up for, I guess, a lifelong fascination of just different ways that people interact with the world. And so a lot of that in my career has been on the technology side, but also personally has been pretty heavily focused in adaptive sports and a lot of things of that nature. So yeah, I think there's just a lot of creativity out there, and it's fun to be able to tap into it and learn about other people's experiences.
Awesome. And was Microsoft your first employer?
It was not. So I actually, when I had gone through that program at the University of Washington, I then got my undergraduate degree there as well. I actually worked part-time for them pretty much the whole time that I was in school, which was neat to get some of those experiences in the industry that I'm working in now. I got to work on some pretty neat projects around like website accessibility, and really got to build and develop some of the technical skills that I still use today. Because I actually have a degree in psychology, which is not a technology field per se, as you might imagine. But it's been fun to bring that blended with all of these kind of other experiences that I had developed on the side. So, but yeah, so after school, I had briefly worked for the Federal Aviation Administration, which down in the States is responsible for air travel regulations across the country and beyond. and I was in their Office of Civil Rights, doing things like coordinating workplace mediations and site assessments for accessibility and just inclusion more broadly. And so that was a neat experience, but it wasn't quite the leveraging that interest in technology that I was looking for. So yeah, after a brief stint there, I got connected with some folks at Microsoft and had found out about a role there, and that was over 9 years ago now. So it's been a long, long while.
I was going to say at the FAA, were you did you always feel that pull back to technology? It seems like that job wasn't necessarily tech related, accessibility related, sure, but not tech related. Did you feel the pull back to a place like Microsoft or somewhere where you could use those tech skills?
Yeah, definitely. I over the years, just throughout some of the other experiences that I had with the Do It program at the University of Washington, had just gotten to know a lot of people at Microsoft. And actually, one of the memories that really sticks out is every summer there was a visit to the Microsoft campus where we got to hear from employees with disabilities there and what their experience was like working with Microsoft, and also just kind of how they navigated life and university and career up till that point. And so it was, again, always neat to just to see all these different experiences around disability, and that seemed like a thing that people were proud of and able to bring to their work. And so I think that was always in the back of my mind as well. I'm like, this seems like a cool place to be able to bring that interest and that passion. And there's a lot of really successful people with disabilities that have done that. But yeah, and especially, I don't know, I was always more fascinated with the technology itself. And so I think the experience that I had with the Federal Aviation Administration was great, and kind of a good place to start out my professional career. But I really wanted to just play around with cool technology more. So
I think that's interesting how when you were at the Do It Center, you visited and talked to people with different disabilities. How do you find that? Is the Do It Center still going? And how do you find it when they're coming now and you're on the other side of it, kind of explaining your story? And do you find that fulfilling that you're able to talk to some of these, I'm assuming younger adults, but maybe not. Um, and are they seeing the same passion in tech and in this kind of area?
yeah, I think so. I mean, it's neat because again, with that program's focus on technology, I think people got a lot of exposure to it and learned a lot more about tools that work for them. And again, same for me, like the idea of what other people use and what they benefit from. And so, yeah, that program is still running today. I think they started in the early 1990s, and they're still running. And they do, yeah, it's kind of an annual summer program for a couple weeks, that you join for 3 years in a row, with slightly different roles and experiences within each. But yeah, I think I've really enjoyed both participating in that, but also being able to continue to be involved with that over the years. Because I think just as I gained a lot from learning about other people's experiences, it's neat to be able to share my own and hope someone else gets something out of that too. We The last several years, I've been the one coordinating those visits to Microsoft, so it's been kind of fun for that to go full circle. Like that was, I think, felt pretty transformative for me when I was around that age, and it was fun to be able to bring people that and just show them what's out there, get them excited about the world of technology and what that means for the disability community.
That's wonderful. And so, are there quite a few individuals that work at Microsoft with disabilities?
Hmm. Yeah, it's especially like it's been neat being here long enough to see how that's evolved over the years as well. Like when I had first joined, I knew of many people with disabilities that had been there many, many years. Um, and I think in the last several years, just the conversation, I think, in the corporate world and in technology more broadly, has changed quite a bit. I think there's a lot more interest in accessibility and a lot of companies trying to make a mark in that space. And so I feel like there's more and more people with disabilities coming into that space. I think there's a lot of hiring pushes to find ways of leveraging the talents of people with disabilities. I can speak at least on the Microsoft side. There's a whole initiative around inclusive hiring. That's how you bring in people with disabilities to and be able to tweak and change and adapt the interviewing and hiring process to find ways for them to be their like authentic selves and be able to show up as best they can in ways that work for them. Like for example, for people with autism, a lot of the traditional aspects of an interview, like whiteboarding and things like that, where you're having to like write out your code, can be challenging to articulate, or sometimes people really struggle with phone interviews. But being able to adapt the interview and hiring process to get to be more collaborative, of just like let people work on projects so you can kind of see how they think and operate, has been really neat and I think creative for finding just ways to bring people in the way that works best.
That's pretty cool. I think we can now look at Microsoft, not after talking to you, but in general, about a company that really does care about accessibility, not only from all the products that they're putting out there, like the adaptive controllers for gaming and all the computer products, but and software. But as you're talking about in the hiring process, that's really cool to see. But in terms of your role, I see it's changed quite a bit over the years at Microsoft. Can you just kind of walk us through your career path at Microsoft?
My original role when I had started was working on a team that's called the Disability Answer Desk that provides free support for end users with disabilities. And so it's for people using a lot of the kind of consumer products like Windows and Office and some of the gaming features as well. I think we found at the time that when someone was using an assistive technology needing support with something, the support agents wouldn't necessarily know much about that and would say, well, I don't really know what that weird technology is. Maybe you should try turning that off and see if that solves your problem. Which, if you depend on that technology to interact with the device, not the greatest advice. And so that team was really meant to provide that kind of tailored support for the disability community with people that do understand and are trained on that technology. And so I was brought in to handle some of the escalations. So I wasn't like the person on the phone with customers day in, day out, but I was working a lot with the team, writing trainings, handling some of the other cases that they were struggling with or that needed some additional support on, or anytime there was feedback that we wanted to share directly with any one of our million different products. Like I worked a lot to understand that feedback, what people were expecting, and how to like best represent and articulate that to an engineering team so they could actually drive some change. And yeah, I think after that role, I kind of stayed in that realm for a little while, but I shifted a little bit to supporting some of our like larger enterprise and commercial customers, a lot of governments as well, that also really focused around accessibility and assistive technology. But in those kind of enterprise environments where the technology that people are using and the ways that those things are configured is just a little bit different and a bit more complex and nuanced. And so that was a really fun space to be able to build deeper relationships with a bunch of these organizations, where you're, instead of just working kind of with one-off end users here and there, it was really like working a lot with test teams at a bank, for example, and just getting to know them, understanding how they operate, and see how we can best collaborate to get whatever feedback they have or whatever they're hearing from their employees to get that addressed so that employees can use technology and be successful with it. So yeah, kind of bounced around a little bit. And then, sorry, I know this is a long-winded answer. My current role is really deeply focused in assistive technology. So I work a bunch with companies that make assistive technology, like screen magnification tools, voice input tools, some of the other organizations that make communication devices and apps like Tobii Dynavox and Smartbox, and really help make sure they're supported on all of our different ecosystems and products. So when we're making pretty big changes to maybe the back end of a product that might impact how they interact with it, we work with them to make sure they know about it in advance. If they need something from us changed or tweaked or something, I'm also their point of contact. And so it's neat to be able to work across this group of smaller companies that are really passionate at what they do, but also really good at their kind of really specialized area. So I've really enjoyed that, of just getting to know these companies, understanding their needs, and just figuring out how best I can represent them and what they're looking for to our different product teams so that we can be successful in delivering cool products, but also make sure that they actually work for people using the whole range of assistive technology that's out there.
It's so important and so refreshing, frankly, to hear that you and that Microsoft are working so closely with these other companies, because it can be the game changer for having a successful device working properly on a computer or Surface, etc. I know many of our members use Toby products, so thank you for all of them.
They're the ones doing the hard work. I just connect the dots and bring people together when I can.
All right, another product that you mentioned you were involved with was and our members know very well, is the Xbox Adaptive Controller. Can you kind of just walk us through how you were involved and just maybe introduce the Xbox Adaptive Controller as well for some of our members who don't know?
Yeah, for sure. Well, first I would share that it's the device that I can see on the shelf behind you there.
We do use them a lot, yes.
Yeah. I thought I spotted that back there. But yeah, so the Xbox Adaptive Controller is a neat device that came out. Ooh, I might be aging it here and see if I can get this right. I think it was came out around the 2019 mark. Maybe someone can fact check me on that later. And apologies if I got that wrong. But it's a project that I have gotten to follow a bit over the years, and the concept for it came out of a hackathon. And so hackathons are something that have been an annual event at Microsoft, at least since I joined. So I think they started maybe in like 2014, and I joined in 2015. And within a few weeks, there was a hackathon going on. So I got to go play around with a bunch of crazy, cool technology. And the idea came out of a hackathon, and it was really based on the understanding that when we look at a game controller, traditionally they have a very specific format, and that's designed with some assumptions about how you interact with it, that you're able to hold your hands closely together, that you've got the grip strength to hold it, that you've got the fine motor control to use all the different buttons and paddles and sticks and all that on them. And so I think what we and a lot of teams realize is that some of those assumptions don't work for everybody. People game and interact with technology very differently from each other, especially in the disability community. And there is no kind of one size fits all of like, here's a device that works for everybody. And so the Xbox Adaptive Controller really came out of that idea and worked really closely with the disability community. And I think initially then it was really focused on veterans with disabilities that often had limb differences. And so a lot of folks in that community wanted to be able to game with their friends and be able to stay connected and enjoy that social aspect of gaming. But again, with a standard controller maybe not working for everybody, the Xbox Adaptive Controller was really meant to allow you to plug in all sorts of different devices and peripherals to really tweak the gaming setup to what works for you. So you can use a lot of simple switches that plug in kind of on the back of the controller. There's ports for essentially every button and thumbstick and all the actions on the controller. So you can theoretically have a really lightweight switch mapped to the A button, or you can plug in different joysticks. So if holding a standard controller doesn't work very well, there are handheld thumbsticks and joysticks that work as well, including some new hardware that I don't have, I'll say, as much experience with. That's coming soon, but I think there were some cool announcements with some new peripherals on that. But yeah, the idea is it's a modular way to plug in lots of different things to be able to tweak the gaming setup to what you need as a gamer. And it's been neat to follow the reception to that. And because people were gaming before that, there were a lot of cool technology and tools out there. But I think it was neat to see this idea from a hackathon turn into something that people can buy off the shelf and still use a lot of that existing hardware they maybe already had, but in kind of a polished packaged setup.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's been a game changer for a lot of our members. And the thing I love the controller, and I love the or not the creativity in terms of the switches and joysticks and everything else you can use with it. But also that you can, like, some people probably think it's for an Xbox console, which it is, but you can also use it for a computer game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is pretty cool. And just you keep mentioning these hackathons, and I really want to attend one of these things now. There must have been some pretty cool things that you've seen over the years that maybe didn't make it to market, but you got to play with.
Yeah, I would say the very few of the kind of ideas do make it to market as a product, but it is neat to see, I don't know, the millions of projects that I, I don't maybe have a ton of experience with, but just even seeing aspects of those that kind of work their way into different things. So it's, I don't know, if anybody listening or watching has a chance to check out a hackathon, they're a neat way to just explore something. I think people often assume they're really for developers to go hack something together, but it's really, there's roles for everybody. I think even just people with ideas and with that interest in solving a unique problem and bringing um, the ability to understand the users or how you kind of like market or how you can articulate the problem space. All of that's needed to be able to develop and build something. So I think there's a lot of cool ways to be involved with something like that.
Sean, do you use a lot of assistive tech at your work?
I don't personally use it day in, day out. I do use a power wheelchair, but as far as other technology on around gaming and technology, I don't. But again, with muscular dystrophy, which is progressive over time, I totally expect that I will use more and more assistive technology as that changes. And I think it's neat that I've had all of these experiences just to get exposed to a lot of that, to know what's out there, and what might work for me down the line as well.
Yeah, well, I think you're in the right place. I know, like looking at a lot of the adaptive tech software and hardware that Microsoft produces. Dragon, naturally
Mhm.
speaking, for example, is something that I use every day. That's
Mhm.
now owned by Microsoft. So I think you're in the right place.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think what's also been interesting working at a big organization like this is again all the different ways accessibility touches everything. Um, I think the like continuing with the adaptive controller as an example, yes, it's designed to bring people to gaming and open up a lot more options. But even like the whole experience of using and setting up that device has to be accessible as well. And so even the packaging, there was a team that was designing and really thinking creatively about how they could make packaging that someone with a disability that uh, needs to use this technology is able to open and set up independently. So there were a lot of the kind of tape on the packaging. There were loops that you could use to tear it.
You know what? I've opened so many of those and never even thought about it. But you're right. There's the big hand. Oh man,
Yeah.
that's
Well,
brilliant. Yeah,
I think it's because you don't think about it because it just is easy and intuitive. Um,
yeah, yeah.
I think the team that designed that really knocked that out of the park. Um, and that was, I got to work with them to help design and give a lot of feedback on the packaging. And so it was fun to see some of their early concepts and then see kind of what it actually ended up as. And so, yeah, it's been a neat thing to be involved with. One of the, one of my fun career highlights, I think, was coordinating a video to talk about the packaging and how easy it is to unbox the device. I got to put together a video of me with our CEO Satya Nadella demoing the how to unbox it and kind of some of the basics of using the device. So I can say I got to play Xbox with our CEO for a little bit.
Well, it's pretty cool.
So, Sean, aside from working at Microsoft, what do you do for fun?
Too many things. Hard to find the time for it all. I have started in the last like 5 years getting really into it, all things related to adaptive sports. I had skied as a kid from when I was like, I don't know, I started pretty young when I was like 3 maybe, until I was about 9 when it got pretty hard for me and I just didn't have the strength and stamina to really do that for the day anymore. And so that was something that like my family continued to do, but it was uh, challenging, I think, at the time to realize and think that like wasn't for me anymore. And I had like vaguely known that adaptive skiing was a thing, but I don't know. It's weird when you are like a teen or young adult with a disability, I think sometimes to navigate your own identity. And I think I felt at times that I wasn't disabled enough to benefit from that, but at the same time, too disabled and couldn't really envision how I would use things and how I would do it, which is a weird mindset to be trapped in. But I think it's not uncommon, and that was definitely challenging at the time. And my brother at the time, he's a bit older than me, but he had signed up as a volunteer with a local adaptive skiing organization. And so again, like I knew of it, but for a while I was like, yeah, I don't think that's for me. That doesn't sound very fun. And so I didn't do it for many years. And then finally, about 6 years ago, I was finally convinced to just give it a try. And I initially was like, yeah, sure, I'll sign up for like a half day and I'll probably hate it. So we'll see how this goes. And then like pretty immediately, I was, oh, this is pretty neat. It was, I think, neat to feel like I had a way that I can use my body to do something. I hadn't really had a lot of outdoor active pursuits in quite a while at that point, and it was neat to do it, to try it, and feel like it was just something that I could do and could develop at. And so, yeah, that started with a group in Washington State called Outdoors for All. That they've been around a long time, but yeah, it was a cool way to start getting out and start developing that and exploring it. And I have gotten pretty hooked, and it's really something I want to do just more and more as much as I can. And I don't know, I've been able to explore places like Whistler and some of the other resorts across BC and Washington State, and just, yeah, again, develop my style of skiing, develop how I do it, develop ski partners, and build some of those skills in that space. And it's been really fulfilling. One of the things I started doing this last winter was exploring being an adaptive ski instructor. I think one of the reasons I didn't do it for so many years was not seeing people quote unquote like me. I know that's kind of a, I don't know, interesting idea, but I didn't see people with muscular dystrophy really doing a lot of these things that I have tried out now. And so I didn't know that it was for me, but I also didn't see people in instructor roles, in leadership roles, kind of running some of these programs with disabilities. And I think if I had seen more of that, it would have shown me more of what's possible. And so I
Well,
think that's
I think it's
good.
important to have people like you there, right? It's because, like you said, when you were younger and not feeling like you were disabled enough yet, not being able to do it, if you had somebody like you there,
Mhm.
just to kind of show you it's possible, it's awesome, just give it a shot,
Yeah.
um, then maybe it could have started so much sooner, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there is a lot of value in, as I've kind of like started developing some skills in the instructor space of like, I sit ski a lot. And so I can, um, I find it helpful to learn from people who have done it. And I'm sure a lot of other people do too. And so it's an area that I'm excited to, I don't know, um, continue exploring and find new ways to hopefully bring more people into it and help show them that it's something they can do.
I was gonna say when you were talking about outdoors for all, and just hearing about your story so far, um, I find it quite fascinating. But I think in my mind, when you mentioned you really enjoyed it the first time, and you've been doing it for years now, I'm thinking, okay, he's probably part of the organization now. He's probably running some of the, like, you just seem to be involved, and you've got ideas about how to upgrade the sit ski, and you're just creativity and your involvement and your passion for it. Are you quite involved now with the organization?
I the organization in Seattle, I'm a little less involved. I was able to get a lot more time skiing, taking a lot of trips up to Whistler this last winter, so I didn't
Okay.
actually get involved with their skiing programs. But again, like they've been such a great organization for developing my own skiing. But I've also since tried out other sports and activities that they're running. This summer, I started doing adaptive mountain biking, which I'll admit I'm still a little scared of my bike because it's very fast and
Right.
some of the trails are pretty intimidating. Um, but I signed up for a weekly series that Outdoors for All is running in the Seattle area to be able to get some more experience and instruction mountain biking. Um, and so that's been a fun new thing. And I've also gotten to do some adaptive sailing with a few other organizations in the region this summer. Um, so I don't know. I just have found I really love being outside, and I think I'm making up for lost time for those years where where I kind of resisted it. And so I'm kind of all in and trying to find all the fun and new experiences, and also really excited to just like help motivate other people to try it. Um, there's a group in Whistler that it's a tourism blog, and they'd wanted to start posting more content about adaptive sports and accessibility in the region, and so I've started to be able to contribute to some of that and like writing about my own experience, and I think there's just so much value in that, and I hope if nothing else it convinces one person to go and try something.
Right.
So I don't know.
Have you ever thought about adaptive sailing in Kelowna? I know a guy.
I've heard a little bit about that. Yeah,
Yeah, we would love to have you here.
yeah, yeah. It's the more I find like an organization that does whatever adaptive sport, I'm like, oh, I'll add that to my list. I'll have to check that out. But now I've been struggling because that list has gotten really long. But I'll get there.
Well, Sean, thank you so much for joining us today. I learned a lot. I hope our viewers learned a lot. To those watching, get out there, try new things, go skiing. The season is coming up pretty quick here, so prepare yourself. Contact your local adaptive sports organizations to see what's available and try something new.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally
thanks so
agreed.
much
And thanks
for
for
joining
having
me.
me. This has been really fun to be able to share some of this. And yeah, like Ian said, people should give it a try. If you need ideas on sailing, I think people might know who to ask here. But if you're curious about skiing or mountain biking or a million other things too, I would love to help people explore and discover and try new things.
It's fantastic. Thank you so much, Sean.